Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you to another in our series of video chats for Half-Earth Project Educator Ambassadors and any other audience that's interested in these chats. I'm really pleased to welcome Katja Schulz from the National Museum of Natural History, part of the Smithsonian Institution. How are you doing, Katya?
Good. How are you, Dennis?
I'm good. Welcome. I'm really glad you could join us. I think I'd just like to start by having you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background. I guess it would be helpful to know what your primary role is now and how did you get to do the job that you're currently doing with the museum?
So currently I'm a data manager and project coordinator for the Encyclopedia of Life, which is a project to collect information about all of the world's organisms, all species, animals, plants, fungi, all kinds of microorganisms. And that project, as you said, is headquartered at the Smithsonian. And I've been doing this now for 11 years. So this is my 11th year at the Smithsonian.
Sorry to interrupt you. Is that from the beginning of the Encyclopedia of Life?
Almost. It was,
Almost.
I joined, I think about a year into it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So,
I was definitely in the like original crew that was
right.
assembled.
So that, and my understanding is the Encyclopedia of Life began because E.O. Wilson gave a, well, he had been talking about it, but I think he gave a TED talk where he said, wouldn't it be great to have a
Yeah.
page, a web page for every species?
He had written a paper earlier about, like, oh, there's now all of these digital opportunities, and couldn't we use this to make an online encyclopedia of all species? And then somebody invited him to give this TED talk to kind of marshal energy and excitement about this idea. And also,
and you have, how many species are documented total on the Encyclopedia of Life? Do you know?
It's well over 1 million. So the estimate is that we have about 1.8 million described species, and we've got almost as many pages. There's a little bit of complication with the fact that, like some species have been named more than once, and we might actually have pages for both versions, for the same species under different names. If we haven't, like if nobody has told us yet that they're actually the same species.
Right.
So it's always like the number of species, both that people know about and that we have, always fluctuates quite a bit.
Right.
But we've got right around 2 million.
But it's, yes, so you've got a lot of species represented in the encyclopedia now. That's terrific. And of course, the estimates for how many there actually are go from 5 to 20 times that.
Yes.
So so I think what I'd like to do, and partly this is because for educators in particular, I was introduced to this beta version of this tool you have. So I'm going to share my screen and bring that up. And I'd really like to encourage people to have a look at this. Tool. So I'm going to share. Can you see the? Are you seeing the?
Yes.
The browser? Okay, good. I think I need to go. Yeah, I think I should go full screen on the browser. Great. Okay. So. Yeah, so I'll drive, but I think you're the person who really knows, obviously has contributed to building these pages. I'm going to move there. So now we can see, I hope everyone can see that it's the American beaver that we have in the center of this trophic web. The colors are not very intense, but sort of the teal color shows predators on the beaver, so things that eat the American beaver. The yellow is prey species, things that the beaver eats. So probably even the non-beaver experts are familiar with beavers as being primarily or maybe completely plant eaters. So we have American beech, pin cherry. I'm familiar with them eating quaking aspens, sumac, butternut. And you can see one of the features is when you scroll around this page, it highlights particular relationships. And then the other thing is the blue is competitors. And my understanding of the competitors is that that's any species that's been identified to eat the same thing.
Yeah, so
So
they may be actual competitors. It's not, but they're definitely potential competitors. Sometimes if they eat another part of a plant, they may not actually compete for the same resources, but for simplicity's sake, we call them competitors, but they're just potential competitors.
Right. And, you know, my understanding is the long-term goal for this trophic web is to include all sorts of species interactions. But for now, what we're focusing on here is basically eat and eaten by is the
yeah, and particularly things that are coded as such. So
right.
it always, you know, we get these data from a variety of different sources, and it's a project called GLOBI, Global Biotic Interactions, that collects these data and then shares them with us. And eats and eaten by are just two of a whole, you know, more than a dozen different interaction types. There are more specific things like preys on and visits flowers of and things like that that are not included in the graph, because this is the very initial version of these graphs that we're playing around with.
Right.
And
so I think, I think that's really, it's really, you know, exciting to be able to have these interactions and I understand what you're saying, that there's sort of, as students or educators were to use this tool, there's some important caveats. And I'll just mention that we will post, when we post this to the website, we'll also have a companion document that has some of the data sources and some of the where the data really comes from, and maybe some interpretation care that has to be taken with some of this data. In other words, some data may be incomplete and things like that. Now I wanted to, because I think one of the coolest features is the fact that this tool is dynamic, which means a couple things. You can move these things around in order to make certain points more clear. So you can move around you can play around with the location of the interacting species. But here's a really cool thing. I'm going to click on grizzly bear. And what the tool does, grizzly bear is a predator onto the beaver. It's going to move grizzly bear to the center. And now the web changes because you've now put the grizzly bear at the center of it. And we'll just take a few seconds to look here. You can see the whole variety of things. Obviously, one of, humans in this case are a predator on the grizzly bear. And then there's a number, even for such a top predator, there's a number of competitors for the grizzly bear. Now, I'm going to reset. I think the easiest way what's the best way to reset and get back to the beaver? Oh yeah, here it is, reset.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there anything else we should look at? Let's see. You know what, I'm just going to click on the American beach, just again to show how this tool can be used to navigate around, sort of move through ecology space with a lens on how different species are interacting.
Yeah, I think one thing to also note is, like, when you mouse over one of these nodes in the graph, if you look on the right of the screen, it will show you the name, but it will also show you a little picture, a thumbnail of what the animal looks like. And that's particularly helpful in things where we don't have a common name, where we just have I don't think they're any here, but for example, up there we have Pococera asperatella. If you say, what is that? You can say, oh, that's also a moth that feeds on American beach.
What an amazing, that's kind of revelatory for me, actually. So here is a species that doesn't have a common name.
Well, it might have a common name, but we haven't picked it up yet.
Yeah.
You know, like it's all a work
Fascinating.
in progress.
Yep.
But you know, I'm not sure if that one has. It's probably called a, you know, like
Yeah.
beach something or other.
Or right, or it has. I've run into this a lot. So many common names that it's confusing. And
Yeah, yeah.
um, does now, and also if I click on, oh, I see it changed it, but each
Well,
of these
if
species has a species page, and I could
yeah,
get to the species page that way.
and if you hover over where you want to go first, and then leave the graph without moving over another node, then you can move over to the right and actually click on the name up on the imperial moth, and that will take you to the species page where you can read all about this.
Got it. Okay.
And yeah, and
That's
then
cool. That's beautiful. This is such a terrific tool, and a great. I love the way you can step through and explore. And really, one of the big take homes is how interconnected, how complicated these webs get, and how they ramify out. So I'm really, my main purpose here is to encourage students and teachers to explore this tool. And we're going to, on our website, we're going to post an invitation to develop some rubrics for exploring these webs, and some lesson ideas, and hope to get some feedback, because I believe you're planning on you're actively working on this tool, and a new version is going to be coming out in
yeah.
coming weeks or months. Do you
Yeah.
want to just tell me quickly about that?
Yeah, we want to tighten up some of the things. Like there's still a bunch of technical problems and errors that we want to iron out, and then we're going to launch it a little bit more conspicuously. Right now, it's there, it's launched, but we're making it difficult to find because of these issues. And as the tool matures, we're going to make it more conspicuous. You'll find like a link to it on our homepage, for example.
Right.
And a page that explains a little bit more about the tool and where the data come from and how to use it. So look for that, in the next couple of months. All of that should be gradually rolled out and make this more usable than it is now.
Well, that's terrific. I really look forward to that, Katya. In the meantime, this is a great opportunity for our education audiences to sort of get a preview of this tool, and they can start playing around with this now. So thank you so much for chatting with me, and thanks for sharing this beautiful tool and your expertise in both biology and informatics.
Well,
Thanks a lot.
thanks for your feedback. Thanks.
Terrific.